Do you have a walk-in closet that needs a little work? I do. In this video, I'm upgrading mine. New lights, fresh paint, custom built-in cabinets, and updated flooring. I'm breaking the work into two parts. The first part's going to be the lighting and the painting, and the second part's going to be the cabinets and the flooring. Now each of these parts can be broken down into smaller parts, and it's certainly a useful exercise to do that because it forces you to think through the supplies and the tools that you'll need to accomplish each part. It's also easier to take on a smaller project than a larger one. To get started, I emptied my closet, and with a clean slate, I used Fusion to model the room and evenly space the new lights after adjusting for the 24-inch deep cabinets that are going to span the back wall. The hole saw that I used worked fine, but it wasn't 6 inches in diameter, and that's a bit of a problem. I'm going to leave the link to it below. Don't buy this one. It's advertised as 6 inches, but it's not 6 inches. You can see that. I still was able to shove the lights in, the holes that I created with these, but it would have been way better, and I wouldn't have to worry about, potentially damaging drywall if the holes were the right size. This worked fine. It's really this that's the issue. If you're installing these 6-inch halos, you don't want a 5.9-inch hole saw, even though it says it's 6 inches. So this company either has zero quality control or they can't measure. My Dewalt drill has 2 speed settings, and I set it to the lower speed setting. This is a pretty big hole saw. It's not 6 inches, but it's close. Yeah, I'm still a bit bitter. It is a bit unwieldy, especially when you're standing on a ladder, so you want to brace yourself. I found that if I kind of rocked it a little bit back and forth as I was drilling, that worked pretty well. But you want to have a good grip on your drill, because if you hit a joist with the hole saw, then it can get a little bit sassy on you. So now don't forget to save the hole for patching the old light locations if you're doing what I'm doing, which is I'm patching my old ones and I'm putting these new ones in. These are handy for doing the patching. So my battery died when I was trying to get the fixture for the old housing out, and this is basically nailed to the joist. What worked the best was cutting out the 6-inch hole, so I had a little bit more room to work with. The 6 inches is what the hole saw is cutting out of these other holes anyway, so that's what I'm going to patch these with. Once I got enough room where I could see how it was attached, they're basically just nailed in sideways like this. And it's a bear to get out, especially with the smaller hole. It's almost impossible. But what I was able to do, and I think the easiest way, was I just took my little Milwaukee saw with a metal blade on it, and I was able to get up behind right where the nail was and just cut the nail off. And so that was really the easiest way to get this out. There's not a lot of room to move around up in here, and I kept getting insulation falling all over the place, so I before I started filming again, I put some cardboard with a little bit of blue tape just to hold everything in place until I'm ready to start putting the lights in. I don't have attic access. It's on the other side of the house, and it is a small cutout, and I cannot crawl from the other side of the house to here. The house wasn't really made for attic access, and I'm not putting something in just for doing this. So it'll stay no attic access. So for the lighting, I'm upgrading from these lights. This was 2 lights in each one of these fixtures. And I'm going to these Halo 6-inch LEDs. Now I got a 4-pack of these lights, and each one of them comes with the LED obviously and the junction box. One of the nice things is you can actually take these apart and then you can take off the light. And this comes in really handy when you're painting the ceiling, because you can just take off one light at a time as you're painting around it, and then you don't have to worry about getting paint on your new LED. Halo provides these woefully undersized wire nuts. You're going to want to pick up something that's a decent size that will hold at least two 14-gauge wires and the little wires for the light. I'm wiring all of my lights together in a series, so for the two end lights I broke out one of the knockouts on the end, and to do that you just take a flathead screwdriver, put it in the slot and go up and down, and that'll break out whichever knockout you need. For the middle ones I knocked out the two ends so that the wire could come in and then go out. You're also going to need to pick up some clamp connectors like these. And those will protect the Romex going through the sharp metal of the junction box, and they will also hold it in place. Now for the number of clamp connectors that you're going to need, make sure you take into account how many openings you're going to create as you install your lights. The last thing on the lights is they have an adjustable color temperature setting. There's just a little slider in here. It's hard to see, but there's a little black slider at the bottom here, and that changes the color temperature. And it's just easiest if you figure out what you want that color temperature to be and then set all of the boxes at once so that you don't forget and get them up in the ceiling, and there you have different settings on different lights. So when picking up your clamp connectors and your wire nuts, don't forget to get your Romex. Now I only needed 15 feet in this little room to wire up these 4 lights. I did use there's an existing light switch in this room, so I used that went up to the original light. After I just disconnected the original light and plugged that into the first LED. So I was able to reuse the wire for that switch. The reason why I had to move the lights is because the room's going to change after I put in the 2 feet of cabinets. So the center of the room is no longer the center of the room. And if you don't have a pair of these Milwaukee wire strippers, go get some. That was like done. I'm using the hole I cut out using the hole saw for the LED lights to patch the hole from the old fixtures, and I'm just going to use a couple of scraps to attach it to the ceiling, and then I'll mud it, and then I've got to prime and paint it. If you're doing the same thing, it's worth marking the centers on these two pieces before you shove them up in the ceiling, because once you get them up there, you have no concept of where the ends are and whether it's in the middle or not. It also helps if you bevel the edges so that they slide underneath the insulation instead of shoving it back. I'm just going to use this little sanding pad to go over and clean off any of the stuff that's sticking up before I put the first coat of compound on this. So I'm not a fan of painting ceilings, but at least in this case, it's small, and I'll be painting the walls too, so I don't have to worry about the corners. Before I paint the walls, I want to make sure that I got all the compound sanded and I haven't missed any holes. And one of the easiest things to do is to just take a light and shine it along the wall. And that lets you pick up areas that you have maybe put compound on but you haven't sanded back. And so, for instance, right here, I didn't see that one because I was looking higher up. So I do have a little bit more sanding to do, and it's just a few areas. But if you just go around the walls with a flashlight, or I really like my Dewalt Light. Not only does it light the room when you don't have lights in here, but it's also handy for just checking to see where you might have missed on the walls before you paint, because you don't want to find that out while you're painting. So the molding on the sides and the back of the room needs to be removed for the new cabinets, so I'm going ahead and pull it off before I start painting. I found that 2 small pry bars work really well to pull the molding away from the wall, and that allows you to cut the caulk with a utility knife as you go. After pulling the molding away from the wall a little bit and removing the caulk, I was able to go back and run this pry bar along the molding, between the molding and the wall, and then when I would hit the brads, I could take my larger pry bar against this pry bar and just pull off the molding. And that saves the molding, but it also saves the drywall because you're not digging this into the drywall. I'm using a brush and a 6-inch roller for edging and a 14-inch roller to fill everything in. cutting the carpet into smaller sections and rolling it up, I use my large pry bar to get the tack strip up and remove all the staples. Well, that wraps up the first part of my Closet 2.0 project. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the cabinets that are coming up next. See you then.